Ladies and gentlemen, if you're a fan of this channel, then I'm going to take a wild guess and say that you know who Liam Vickers is and what he does. From being a story writer, to a music maker, to an animator, the one thing about him that stayed the same over the years is that he loves to create new characters. Not just any characters, mind you, characters so powerful that a good chunk of them are classified as threats to all of humanity. With so many potential world enders being born from the imagination of one man, my own imagination came up with an idea that I couldn't help but follow through with. For today's video, I'm going to be picking 8 of your favorite characters from across the Liam Vickers extended universe to face off in a head-to-head competition to see which of these overpowered creations is the most overpowered. You better be ready, because we're doing this whether you like it or not. So anyways, what's up my guys and gals, it's your boy Tyromaniac, back with another Smokin' Hot video, and today, I welcome you to the LVEU Deathmatch Tournament. Before we get into today's video, I just have 3 quick reminders for you. 1, I'm just doing this for the hell of it, so please don't take it that seriously. 2, I'm assuming that all of you are pretty familiar with each of our contestants, but just in case you aren't, spoilers ahead. 3, the first couple minutes are just going to be me going over our rules and contestants, so if you want to skip straight to the good stuff, then the timestamp should be on screen right about now. For the rest of you, before we can get into the action, let's lay down some quick ground rules. Alright, so here's the rundown. We've got 8 contestants, each representing one of Liam Vickers' most popular series, 4 from Scary Storytime with Liam, and 4 from Liam Vickers Animation. Each and every one of them are going to be facing off against each other based on this here tournament bracket, until one poor bastard comes out on top. Whoever that ends up being will be crowned the most powerful character in the entire Liam Vickers extended universe, or as I like to call it, the Vickers-verse. So says me, the random guy on the internet. Anyways, each match is basically just going to be me comparing each contestant's strengths and weaknesses to see who I think would win in a one-on-one fight to the death. I also have a few extra rules that I made up for those comparisons, so for the sake of transparency, I might as well lay them out for you here. Rule 1, each fight goes until someone is dead, and resurrecting yourself isn't allowed. No magic absolute solver malarkey. If you're dead, you're dead. Rule 2, if someone's exact power set isn't all that clear in the source material, then I try to stay a little more on the conservative side. Obviously, I had to take a few creative liberties with how infamously incomplete the source material is, but I still tried my best to stay as grounded as possible. Rule 3, no outside help. Doesn't matter if it's people, weapons, whatever, you only get what's attached to you. Rule 4, no destroying or manipulating all of reality. And Rule 5, no assimilating your opponents. All I have to say about those last 2 rules is that yes, they are specifically aimed at exactly who you think they are. Gotta keep things interesting somehow, you know? Either way, those are our ground rules, so keep those in mind as we move forward. Now then, let's meet our contestants, shall we? You know how it is. 4 contestants from SSTWL, 4 from LV Animation, 0 people who asked. Like I said in the intro, I'm assuming that anybody who knows about this channel also knows who our contestants are and what they're capable of. But just in case, I'm going to give you a brief rundown anyways. Also, links to all 8 of the original series are in the description, so be sure to check those out first if you're at all interested. Anyways, enough yapping, time to introduce our lineup. Representing Design Seasons 1, 2, and half of 3, we've got the telekinetic, parasitic, chain-wielding corpse, Callie Ames. Callie is what's known as a left hand, or a girl who was infected early in life by a left-hand parasite. The parasite wrapped itself around the base of her spine and matured inside of her, waiting until she turned 13 to kill her off and take full control for itself. While that does technically mean that she's a walking corpse being piloted by a magic tapeworm, it also gives her one of the most broken abilities in the entire Vickers-verse, matter distortions. It's basically just telekinesis on juice. Not only does it let her throw hands without being in arm's reach, but it also lets her redirect any projectile traveling fast enough to kill her right back to sender, all without giving it a conscious thought. She can bitch slap people's hands into the ground for trying to touch her, lift people into the air to skin them alive, and even deflect hundreds of high caliber rounds per second, all without lifting a finger. Hell, she even manages to turn the fact that she's dead into an advantage. Since the parasite is technically the only living thing inside her body, the only ways to actually kill her are to target the parasite itself at the base of her spine, or to take a page from the zombie playbook and go straight for the brain. Hit her anywhere else, and she'll be good as new within a few minutes. Doesn't matter if it's an open wound or a severed limb, she can fix it with the matter distortions. Oh, and just in case all of that wasn't broken enough, there's also the 4 telekinetically controlled chains coming out of her back that serve as the real danger. And not only are they tipped like spears, not only can she move them faster than your eyes can track, but she can also vibrate them so fast that they burn the air around them. Her only possible weakness is that calling her a puppet of the parasite would be surprisingly literal. Since she is technically dead, every movement she makes from lifting her arms to taking a step forward has to be done manually with the matter distortions, so don't expect her to be doing parkour or anything. Still, as long as she's not fighting another left hand, it's easy to see how she earned the Weapon of Mass Destruction title. Representing Yellow Halogen, when it's not unlisted that is, we've got the Queen Bee herself, Halogen Fear. As Queen of the Sirens, she's got the ability to perfectly mimic any voice she's ever heard, basically making her a walking deepfake generator. Instead of using that power to make videos of the presidents playing Minecraft, however, she mostly uses it to do what sirens do best and, well, eat people. Or at least she tries to. Now, trying to understand the way sirens work in the Vickers verse is basically like taking a college chemistry class, so here's the abridged version. She's got all sorts of deadly toxins in her saliva and in the needles jutting out of her wrist that, if used properly, give her complete control over the minds of her victims. She can also lay down razor-thin wire that paralyzes anyone who touches it. If tripwires aren't your thing, but blacking out for a few hours is, then you're in luck because touching her apparently shark-like skin will also paralyze you. Aside from all the alchemical trickery, she also has needle-like teeth, the ability to disguise her shark-like skin as normal human skin, and heterochromia, because at this point, why not? Regardless, for as untouchable as all of that makes her sound, she should still theoretically be just as killable as your average human. The only thing that might make her a bit tougher is the whole shark skin thing I talked about earlier, but that's about it. Long story short, imagine an AI voice changer with access to chemical weapons, and that's basically what we're dealing with. Representing Puppet Game, we've got the most sadistic hand puppet this side of the multiverse, the one, but not only, Ponder. Kinda weird having him here since he's usually the one running these kinds of tournaments, but you can't stop me and neither can he, so let's do it. Not only can he pull needle guns, and probably regular guns too, out of thin air, not only does he have multiple clones of himself that all share a collective conscience, not only can he read through the comment section on any YouTube video he appears in, but he can also create nuclear level explosions whenever and wherever he damn well pleases. You could be 3.5 dimensions away and he'd still nuke you, your family, your dog, specifically, and your entire reality just for gits and shiggles. Now obviously that is incredibly broken, so to keep things even remotely fair, I'm gonna be nerfing his ass so hard that he feels it all the way back in 2016. So yeah, I'm gonna say that the Splice Fissure explosions are closer to grenade level than nuke level, and I'm gonna say no to letting any clones join the fight too. It's not the most unrealistic thing to do, since as mentioned explicitly in Puppet Game, that the Splice Fissures vary in power depending on the universe they're in. So let's just say that Ponder rolled bad RNG with this one. Don't worry, I'm sure being able to pull random weapons out of his ass should be more than enough to cover for the lost firepower. Anyways, even with all those limitations I bitch slapped onto him, and the fact that he's basically just a hunk of machinery hiding inside a rabbit hand puppet, Ponder is probably still one of our most broken contenders. Last but not least for our SSTWL contestants, representing Black Dogs, we've got the best boy around, oversized hellhound, the Styx Hound. It's just a big f***ing dog. That's pretty much it. Is what I would say if I was stupid. Not only can this thing tank a massive amount of damage thanks to it literally being the size of a tank, but it's also concerningly intelligent. Some might even say that he can in fact solve puzzles. Of course, you're probably wondering what his weird and wacky ability might be, and to that I say that not every Liam Vickers character has some its parasites. There's a parasite in its saliva that revives the corpses of anyone it kills and puts their mind under its control, basically turning them into puppets, or pets you could say, of the Hound. So basically, imagine a black lab the size of an elephant with the brain power of a human and a zombie parasite in its saliva. Talk about top dog, am I right? Alright then, fine, moving on. Now then, let's see who we're kidnapping from LV Animation, shall we? Representing Let's Split Up, we've got Liam's suspiciously attractive interpretation of a Native American legend, everyone's favorite Wendigo, D. Being a master shapeshifter, not only can she switch between her human and Wendigo form damn near instantly, but she can also use her own flesh and bones to make makeshift weapons. She's also a master manipulator, which we know because we've seen her in action rizzing up poor, unsuspecting jocks that she plans on eating. To be fair, they don't make it look all that difficult, but that's besides the point. Either way, we don't know much else about her given that she only has like 4 total minutes of screen time, but we can assume a thing or two. Specifically, based on how much she's able to do with her shapeshifting, I'd be willing to bet that she's got a pretty powerful healing factor. Hitting a major organ would probably still be enough to shut her down, but she should be able to shrug off anything less lethal. I'd also be willing to bet that she's probably a fair bit stronger than your average human thanks to the whole Wendigo thing, but that's more of a side note than anything. Not the craziest power set we've seen so far, but more than enough to hold her own in the fights to come. Representing Cliffside, we've got the most, how do I say this nicely? Brain cell deficient spider girl in all the Wild West, the rootin' tootin' people shootin' Cordy. She's got legs like a spider, eyes like a fly, and arms like a crab, for some goddamn reason, giving her all the strength, speed, and reflexes she could ask for. Her reflexes are so good, in fact, that she can catch bullets out of mid-air. If she can move those big-ass claws that fast and with that much precision, just imagine what she could do to a human body. No wait, not like that. As if that wasn't bad enough, she can also shoot out webbing that's strong enough to pull dragons out of the sky, which, sure, just don't ask where the webbing comes from. Oh, and she can quadruple wield 6-shooters. She doesn't get to use them during the tournament or anything, but the fact that she went from no thoughts head empty to pumped up kicks in like 3 days is still pretty impressive. Don't give that brain of hers too much credit though, since it's made stupidly obvious in the Cliffside pilot that Cordy is aggressively easy to manipulate. Just look at that face and tell me that there's a single neuron firing between those ears. I dare you. Still though, not bad for our little 8-legged outlaw. Representing Internetian Cube, we've got the spoopiest AI murder cube the world has ever seen, Icon. Not only can she break down and assimilate literally anything on a molecular level, but she can also reuse that assimilated matter for pretty much whatever she wants. There's the boring stuff like spontaneously generating guns, living creatures, and more out of thin air. Or she could do something cool like turning herself into an anime girl. Speaking of which, she has 3 main forms she can switch between, those being cube, robot, and human, each with varying levels of durability. It's essentially the same thing as shapeshifting, except that she's also able to weaponize it to do stuff like that. Oh, and just in case her ability to deal damage wasn't bad enough, she's also able to tank just as much of it, if not more. For instance, we've seen her just casually shrug off a literal building flattening explosion without a single scratch on her, and that was in human form too. No idea whether that was because of some god tier healing factor or if she's literally just invincible. I lean towards the first one personally, but either way, it's bad news for whoever gets sentenced to facing her. So yeah, with all of these extremely broken abilities and no canon weaknesses to speak of, yet, I think it's safe to say that Icon's got one hell of a shot at the top. Last up for the LV animation roster and representing murder drones, we've got the lean, mean, literal killing machine, Serial Designation V. She's got wings with big ass blades on them, she's got a tail that injects super corrosive acid, she's got a small arsenal of guns, lasers, and rockets at her literal fingertips, and she's got all sorts of sensors and targeting systems and whatnot just built into her brain for the fun of it. In other words, she's packing the firepower of a small army with the precision of a brain surgeon, which is a deadly enough combination on its own without having the mindset of a chainsaw to back it up. Just know that if you see a giant X where her eyes used to be, then the only thing going through her head is a detailed list of all the ways she can go through yours. Don't let yourself be fooled by how often she gets flexed on in the series either, since she's still strong enough to rip metal apart with her bare hands like it's cardboard, and fast enough to catch a bullet out of midair. Common feat apparently. There's also the Absolute Solver, which gives her the ability to heal from basically anything, albeit pretty slowly, because f*** you, that's why. As for the other thing the Absolute Solver does, I'm just gonna ignore that since she kinda has to die before that happens, so we'll just consider the fight over if it gets to that point. Anyways, now that you've met all 8 of our contestants, it's finally time to...
Tyro, my man, I think you're forgetting something there.
Wait, is that the Yagster from the hit YouTube channel Yagster? The hell are you doing here?
You invited me here?
Oh.
So, are you gonna say something?
That's right, Yag here is going to be joining me for today's tournament. I'm going to be going over the results for the SSTWL characters, and my biblically accurate friend here is going to handle the results for the LV animation characters. You ready?
No.
Perfect. Now then, and I've been waiting to say this, let's get ready to rumble! Alright, so the setup for our tournament is going to look a little something like this. As you can see, all we gotta do is figure out the strongest contestant from both SSTWL and LV animation. Once that's done, we can finally face them off to see which overpowered character is the most overpowered. Starting with our first round, we've got Callie vs Halogen, Ponder vs the Styx Hound, Icon vs V, and D vs Cordy. Doesn't matter if you're ready or not, let's get started. Kicking this off with two of the oldest characters in Liam's roster, we've got Design vs Yellow Halogen, Callie Ames vs Halogen Fear.
Hey, I've seen this one. This is a classic.
If that matchup sounds familiar, that's because we saw this exact scenario play out in Puppet Game. And just like in Puppet Game, I'm telling you right now that it's not even close. This isn't even a fight. This is a warm-up for Callie and an execution for Halogen. Let me break it down. All of Halogen's abilities force her to get up close and personal, while all of Callie's abilities let her strike from a safe distance. You don't need Dr. Matthews to tell you that between the chains and the matter distortions, Callie could easily find at least a dozen ways of turning Halogen's insides into outsides, and that's before Halogen can even take her first step forward. Those same matter distortions would also be able to stop Halogen from even thinking about landing a hit on Callie, but even if she somehow pulled it off, then it still wouldn't even do anything. Callie being effectively dead means that all of Halogen's special chemicals are useless against her, since you can't exactly poison a corpse. I mean, what's she gonna do? Paralyze her? She's already paralyzed, idiot. That's why she has to make all of her movements manually with the matter distortions. Absolute best case scenario is that Halogen is able to dodge long enough to convince Callie not to kill her. But this is a death battle, so in the end, she's destined for that Dr. Matthews treatment. Callie wins, 0 difficulty. Next up, we've got two reality warping puppet masters facing off to see who's really top dog. Puppet Game versus Black Dogs, Ponder versus the Styx Hound. Even if they've been nerfed, Ponder's splice fissures are going to deal a lot of damage, but the sheer size of the hounds means that it's going to be able to tank a lot of that damage. Don't get me wrong, the hound wouldn't have any problem dealing with Ponder once he catches in between those teeth, but that right there is the problem, catching him. Ponder should be small enough, and, I'm assuming, agile enough, and most importantly small enough to dodge most of the hound's attacks, but all it takes is the hound getting lucky once to make it an instant game over. However, while the hound is playing whack-a-mole trying to catch the slippery little bugger, Ponder is going to be able to pull all sorts of random weapons out of his ass to open fire on the hound. On top of the splice fissures he's already going to be lobbing at him. Eventually, even if the hound could one-tap Ponder without a second thought, the splice fissures and the constant small arms fire should be able to bring the hound down, death by 1,000 paper cuts style. The biggest challenge for Ponder is just going to be the dodging, so he should be good as long as he's able to avoid becoming a chew toy. Ponder wins, mid difficulty.
Finally got to my turn, and we are starting with the battle of the killer AIs. Internation Cube versus Murder Drones. Icon versus the Serial Destination V. That kinda rhymed, but believe it or not, they both have similar power sets, which makes this one kinda tough. Both of them can pull guns out of thin air, but when it comes to total firepower, we've seen V handling a much wider variety of stuff with a much higher caliber than Icon's glorified syringe. V's also got a lot more options when it comes to melee, because we've only ever seen Icon with those giant ass claws attached to her hair. That said, just because Icon doesn't have a lot of options, that doesn't mean the options she does have are lacking. Sure, I mean, they're not very maneuverable, but we've seen them leave human-sized craters in solid asphalt, and that's when she was holding back. Regardless of that, V should still have the upper hand in close quarter combat thanks to her agility and quick reflexes. Unfortunately for our favorite piece of dino food, that's kinda it for her list of advantages. V might be able to dodge most of Icon's attacks, but getting hit by a single one would get her fucked harder than she does in the average comic dub. Especially if it's the move she used against the helicopter in episode 1. We should also note that Icon would be able to scratch off a lot more damage than V would be able to. It takes V literal minutes to heal from things that wouldn't even scratch Icon. So it would be a long drawn out fight with a lot of shots fired, a lot of close quarter combat, and a lot of acrobatics. However, it's only a matter of time until Icon catches V lacking, and N would not be there to bail her out. Icon wins with very high difficulty. Finally, we have the Clash of the Cryptids. Let's Split Up versus Cliffside. D versus Cordy. It's another very close one, since they both have very strong advantages in close quarters. We've seen just how dangerous Cordy's crab/spider limbs are, but one look at what Dee can do with her hands and it becomes pretty obvious who has the one-up. The difference here, however, is that Dee has to fight in close quarters. Even with shapeshifting, any weapon she could make would have to be attached to her. Cordy, meanwhile, has her webbing that she could use from a distance to keep Dee pinned down.
You know, I'd like to keep Dee pinned.
Tyro, shut the fuck up. Anyways, Dee shouldn't have much trouble breaking out of the actual webbing, but it would cost her precious time that Cordy could use to do some massive damage. If that was where it ended, then Cordy would probably end up winning the fight. Unfortunately for our favorite arachnid, Dee has a few more tricks up her sleeve that could be a bit more hypothetical. Assuming that she actually does have some sort of regenerative ability, she would easily be able to outlast Cordy when it comes to taking damage. More importantly, with how easy it is to manipulate Cordy and how much of a manipulator Dee is, don't be surprised if this match ends up having some sort of psychological aspect. Dee could easily get into Cordy's head, especially with her shapeshifting, which would confuse Cordy enough to give Dee the upper hand. This could easily be the least probable outcome of the entire video, solely because we know barely anything about Dee, but if what I said here is accurate, then Dee's regenerative abilities and tendency to manipulate people should win her the fight. It really should be unknown difficulty, but screw it. Dee wins mid to high difficulty.
Alright, that's enough out of him. For now. Anyways, that's also the end of round 1, and we've got our surviving contestants handpicked for the next round. On the SSTWL side, we've got Callie and Ponder representing Design and Puppet Game, and on the LV Animation side, we've got Icon and Dee representing Internetian Cube and Let's Split Up. So then, let's see who gets to live on to the finals, and who ends up more dead than Liam's older projects. Kicking off the second round, we've got two of the heaviest hitters from all of SSTWL. Two unstoppable forces set in a collision course. Design versus Puppet Game, Callie versus Ponder. This one is probably the closest we've seen yet, since both have such unbelievably broken power sets that either one of them could just insta-kill the other on sight. Ponder has no defense against Callie's matter distortions or her chains, meaning that all she needs is one lucky shot to wipe him from reality. It's not even like Ponder would really be able to fight back, since any firepower he throws at her would just get sent back through his own skull. That said, while Ponder might not have anything to counter Callie's matter distortions, Callie also has nothing to counter Ponder's splice fissures. She can deflect an explosive shell from a gun or whatever, but we've never seen her deflect the explosion itself, so there's nothing stopping Ponder from taking a page out of Subject 104's book and repeating the Season 2 ending incident. Callie might, and I mean might, be able to shrug off one splice fissure, but it would still at the very least knock her on her dead ass and leave her there waiting for the second one. Remember, any and all movements she makes are done manually, so there's basically a 0% chance of her getting back up before Ponder fires off a second shot. That's still if she even survives the first one, since just one would probably be enough to either physically rip her apart or just vaporize her entire nervous system. In the end, a fight between Ponder and Callie is basically just nuclear war. You ain't surviving the blast, so the only way to win is to strike first, and in this case, I think that's gonna be Callie. Ponder, being the arrogant and sadistic little fuck that he is, probably wouldn't think to hit Callie with a splice fissure first. He'd try to drag it out and toy with her, which just gives Callie, someone who gets straight to the point without fucking around, time to hit first. Unlike the Styx Hound, Callie wouldn't have any problem keeping up with Ponder thanks to both how fast she can move her chains and the fact that she could just telekinetically snatch him out of the air. It really is just a glorified coin toss, and it just so happens that this coin likes Design more than Puppet Game, so we're going with Callie. For real though, Callie just has more ways of taking Ponder down than Ponder does Callie, especially after being nerfed on a multiversal level. Callie wins, high difficulty.
Well, alright then. Now that the 9 SS2WL fans have been thoroughly pissed off, let's deal with the LVA side of things. We've got the Rubik's Cube versus the Cannibal, Internetian Cube versus Let's Split Up, Icon versus Dee. I'm gonna be real with you, this is basically a repeat of the Callie versus Halogen fight. It really isn't a fight, it's just Icon getting some quick target practice before the final round. Dee could do literally nothing that would even put a dent in Icon. Meanwhile, one dap from Icon's hair claws would probably break Dee's entire skeleton. Regenerative abilities or not, Icon could just casually summon enough firepower to leave a skid mark where Dee used to be. Dee's shapeshifting abilities wouldn't even help her out much, because Icon could literally match anything she tries. Even if it does help, then literally everything else I just said should be enough to do the trick anyways. The only options D really has is just to dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge again and try and buy as much time as possible. She can only do it for so long before Icon just gets bored and one-shots her, and that's a big if because she could just do it right out the gate. Icon wins with low difficulty.
Oh boy, we're getting to the good stuff now. One champion from SSTWL, one champion from LV Animation, two finalists competing to claim the title of the most powerful waifu in the entire LVEU. Are you ready, Mr. Yagster?
If by ready you mean ready to be done with this shit, then hell yeah, I'm ready.
That's the spirit. Now then, on to the finale. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've all been waiting for. The old versus the new, the worm versus the cube.
The epic final battle between the two godlike parasites that tugged our heartstrings the most.
Design versus Internation Cube, Callie versus Icon. Remember every other time in this video that we've called the fight the closest one yet? Yeah, we'll throw all those out the window because this right here is it. Pretty much anything Icon could really do to Callie would rely on her making some form of physical contact, which means that Callie's matter distortions are coming in clutch yet again. It's not even like Icon could use any of that infinite firepower from the other fights either, since anything she threw at Callie would just get redirected right back through that empty ass head of hers. If there's one thing that left hands are good at, it's being untouchable.
On the other hand, Icon's no pushover either. I don't know if you remember the, Yeah, that was a building-flattening explosion that Icon just shrugged off without a scratch, in her human form no less. She's basically like a giant cockroach in terms of taking damage and not caring, so it's not like Callie could even one-shot her either.
Well, hold on a second, that might not be the full story here. The only kind of damage we've ever seen Icon take is explosive, and that damage was only dealt to her outer human layers, not the cube itself. It's a stretch, but if the cube itself is some sort of weak point, then Callie might be able to deal some damage here after all.
Okay, whoa, hold up now. Callie's matter distortions are not 100% either. In Design Season 3, we see that there's a way to get past them, meaning Icon should be able to land a few hits of her own.
You didn't even finish Season 1.
Shut! It would only take one direct hit to either Callie's brain or the base of her spine to turn her from a walking corpse into a corpse. If she can breach the hull of a military helicopter, she can breach a dead girl's force field.
Maybe, but Callie could also just use her matter distortions to keep Icon pinned while her chains do the real damage. Don't forget, those things can move fast enough to turn invisible and reach high enough temperatures to melt anything they touch. It's basically like fusing a whip with a welding torch, and it should be more than enough to break that cube like it's Minecraft.
Right, but that's assuming Icon can even be killed through conventional means. Honestly, we might as well just make plot armor the deciding factor.
You're right. However, I think that if you look at it from all angles, Callie's chains and especially her matter distortions are just something that Icon doesn't have a way of countering. While Icon might be able to one-shot Callie if she was able to get an opening, I just don't think that opening will ever present itself. This would probably end up being the most intense battle the LVEU has ever seen, but in the end, I think that Icon winning would need a lot more pure luck than Callie winning would. Callie wins infinite difficulty. And there you have it, the Liam Vickers Extended Universe Deathmatch Tournament, hosted and decided by yours truly.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, you're here too, I guess. Anyways, our victorious champion, the most overpowered character out of the entire roster, ended up being none other than Callie Ames from Design. Well, at least until Subject 104 finds her she is. As for the rest of our contestants, let's just say you can't spell Liam Vickers without a big, fat L. Just keep in mind that I am in fact human, so all of my little biases and stupidities probably change the outcome for a few fights. That said, what do you guys think? Was there someone that you think should have made it farther down the bracket, or someone that you think shouldn't have made it as far as they did? Are there any other characters you think I could have added that would have changed the ultimate outcome? I did write most of the script like a year ago, so I probably missed a few. Either way, feel free to let me know in the comments below.
Bro.
Oh yeah. Thank you to Yagster for agreeing to do this one with me. It's nice to finally be working with the king of murder drones himself.
Thank you, Tyro. It's been a pleasure being on your channel, even if it's a little questionable at times. But yeah, all around I had a really good time and I don't regret it whatsoever. This is without doubt failure I cannot see. If you ever want to collab again, be sure to hit me up. Thanks for having me.
I'm gonna kill you. But I'll get to that later. For now, that's it for this video, so remember to light up that like button, smoke that subscribe button, drop a big old comment, go check out Yaxter's channel while you're at it, and I will see you guys in the next video.